The sacred hush of early morning awakens the soul to clarity, courage, and unseen strength. There is a strangeness to the hour when the world lies still, when even the restless streets have fallen silent, and the ordinary burdens of human chatter and rushing footsteps are hushed beneath a canopy of waiting stars. It is in that interval between 3 and 5 in the morning that the air itself seems thinner, as though creation holds its breath, and the heart that rises to meet it finds itself touched by an invisible hand. Those who know this time know also that it is not simply another portion of the clock's cycle, but a doorway, a threshold upon which the spirit may step with a trembling but earnest foot. For here, in the silence before sunrise, the mind sheds its fever of yesterday, and the soul, if it dares to listen, is granted visions and strength that are too subtle for the noise of midday to allow. The world is a noisy place, filled with claims and demands, with voices that cry out for attention, and with distractions that pull the soul apart. But in the deep quiet of the early morning, those voices grow faint, and one begins to hear the subtler tones that are usually drowned by the storm. It is not only silence one encounters, but a deeper order woven into silence itself, a rhythm of existence that beats beneath the surface of all things. One becomes suddenly aware of one's own breath, of the faint rustling of leaves beyond the window, of the solemn dignity of a clock ticking in the hall. Each sound ceases to be common and becomes part of an orchestra of truth. And in that symphony, a courage begins to kindle. A courage born not from the arrogance of man's will, but from alignment with something greater. Something that whispers to the soul, you are not alone. You are not abandoned. You are not meaningless. There is clarity in the night, when the mind has emptied itself of yesterday's weariness. The tangled web of thoughts that plague the tired brain loosens, and like a knot unraveling, the truth stands bare. One sees one's own follies with an honesty that does not sting but heals. One sees also the path ahead, not as a dazzling revelation of every detail, but as a firm assurance that steps may be taken without fear. How often in the daylight hours our thoughts are clouded, how easily we are tossed by the winds of others' opinions, by the weight of anxieties that scream louder than reason. Yet in this early hour, thought becomes like a river whose waters run clear, and the pebbles at its bottom may be counted with ease. And when a soul gazes into such clarity, it does not rush to seize it but drinks deeply, as the weary traveler drinks from a spring. Courage comes, too, in that hour, for courage is not always found in battlefields or in public declarations. It is often born in the unseen stillness, where the heart wrestles with its own fears, where one dares to face the mirror of conscience and not turn away. Between 3 and 5 in the morning, when shadows still cling, but the promise of dawn draws near, one may choose to surrender to despair, or one may choose to rise and fight the inner battles that are harder than any fought with sword or shield. The strength to begin again, the resolve to forgive, the boldness to step into an uncertain tomorrow. All these are found not in the noise of crowds, but in the secret wrestling of the soul with its maker, in the stillness of early morning. And when the sun does rise, that courage, invisible to the world, shapes every action, every word, every step, as though fire had been kindled in secret chambers and now warms an entire house. There is, moreover, an unseen strength that comes in these hours. It is not the strength of muscle, nor the shallow zeal of enthusiasm, but something steadier, like the roots of a tree that drink deeply while no eye watches. This strength is not demanded, not seized, but received, and only the heart that bends low in humility can bear it. Many chase strength in the glare of day, in accomplishments displayed before men, in applause and recognition. Yet the strength that endures, the strength that carries a soul through storms, is the kind that is gathered in hidden places, in the early hours when no one sees, when no one praises, when no one knows but the soul itself. And such strength does not dissipate when trouble comes. It grows, it steadies, it becomes the rock upon which all else rests. To wake between 3 and 5 is not merely to rise early, it is to kneel before the mystery of life itself and receive, in silence, what words cannot give. The sacred hush is more than absence of sound, it is a presence. The shadows seem alive with expectation, as though all of creation waits for the first touch of dawn. In that waiting, the soul feels its own smallness, but also its own dignity. To be awake when most sleep is to see what most miss, to stand guard in a watchtower and glimpse the horizon while others still dream. And in that watch, one discovers that clarity is not a matter of intellect alone, but of alignment, that courage is not recklessness but obedience, and that unseen strength is not an illusion, but a gift poured into vessels willing to be filled. To rise at that time is to participate in a rhythm older than the sun, to join the chorus of those unseen beings who never sleep, but who labor ceaselessly in joy, and to feel, for a fleeting moment, the gravity of eternity pressing into the ordinary minutes of time. The stillness invites reflection, and reflection invites gratitude. At 3 in the morning, the heart remembers blessings overlooked in the business of day. The warmth of a bed, the roof above, the food that sustained, the voices of loved ones. Such things, too easily ignored, return with vivid force. Gratitude itself becomes a form of strength, a lifting of the soul above its burdens. And with gratitude comes perspective. Troubles which loomed so large by daylight now seem smaller against the canvas of the vast night sky. The mind sees not only what is wrong but what is still good, still true, still worthy of thanksgiving. And such perspective breeds resilience, for the one who has tasted gratitude at dawn is less easily shaken by the storms of noon. But gratitude alone does not suffice. The early hour also demands honesty, for in silence there is no room for pretense. Masks fall away when no audience watches, and the soul stands before its own naked truth. Failures remembered sting, but in that sting lies hope, for only what is confessed may be healed. Regrets rise like specters, but in facing them, one discovers they are not chains but teachers. And in this honesty, courage is born, not the courage to deny weakness but the courage to walk forward in spite of it. Such honesty, such courage, such strength, these are not fashioned in the glare of applause, but in the shadows of the early morning. And clarity, too, expands into vision. In those hours, the imagination stretches its wings. Dreams not yet fulfilled whisper again, possibilities long buried stir awake. The heart dares to hope, not with childish fantasy, but with the sober certainty that even in a weary world light will come. Plans formed in those hours bear a quality of endurance, for they are conceived not in haste but in reflection, not in noise but in stillness. And when the day comes, the one who has dreamed at dawn walks with a step firmer than the rest, for they walk not only by sight, but by vision born of silence. The sacred hush of early morning is therefore no mere accident of the clock. It is a gift, a summons, a hidden treasure waiting to be claimed. Few choose it. Fewer still understand it, yet those who do are forever marked by it. They walk into the day with a light others cannot name, with a strength others cannot trace, with a courage others cannot explain. For they have touched eternity in the silence of the night and carry its echo in their hearts. And though the world may not see, though the world may not know, something unshakable has been woven into their being. Something that will endure long after the noise of the day has passed. Discipline at dawn becomes the foundation of wisdom, shaping days and destinies alike. There is a hidden architecture to every life, and like the unseen roots of a great oak tree, the strongest structures are laid in silence and obscurity. The discipline of rising before the world has awakened is one of those roots, invisible to passers-by, yet nourishing the whole of existence. To rise when the body pleads for more sleep, when the mind clings to dreams, when darkness still covers the land, is to declare allegiance to something greater than comfort. It is to say that the soul is master, not the flesh, and that destiny is worth the sacrifice of slumber. And in this declaration, in this simple but costly act, wisdom begins to grow. For wisdom does not come to the one who always yields to ease, but to the one who accepts the difficult discipline of self-mastery. The hours of dawn are not ordinary, they are formative. The person who claims them claims the day, and the day claimed again and again becomes the shaping of a lifetime. Every morning is a seed, and what is planted in those hours takes root in the heart and bears fruit in actions, unseen by those who have not learned the power of beginnings. One who begins with indifference ends with confusion. One who begins with distraction ends with waste. But one who begins with discipline builds a frame upon which the entire day can rest with steadiness and strength. The work of the mind, the purity of thought, the clarity of vision, all flow from this unseen beginning. It is a hidden covenant. Tend the dawn, and the day will tend to you. Neglect the dawn, and the day will devour you. For life is not merely lived, it is built stone by stone, habit by habit, and discipline is the mortar that binds it together. The dawn teaches that mastery over small things precedes victory in great things. To rise before sunrise is not in itself a conquest of the world, but it is a conquest of the self, and that is where all true victories begin. Wisdom is never given to the one who cannot command himself, for how can he guide others? How can he endure trials? How can he discern truth, if his own appetites enslave him? The discipline of dawn is a daily training in self-command, a reminder that desires must serve the spirit and not rule it. The man who conquers the pillow will one day conquer greater fears, and the woman who commands her own rest will one day stand unshaken before storms. To rise at dawn is a rehearsal for life's greater calls, a daily proving ground where one learns obedience, patience, courage, and foresight, not in dramatic gestures but in steady faithfulness. There is also a sacred rhythm in aligning with the dawn. The whole of creation moves by cycles, tides, and appointed times. The stars keep their course, the moon waxes and wanes, the earth itself spins faithfully. Wisdom consists not only in knowledge, but in harmony with the design of things. To rise with the dawn is to align oneself with this rhythm, to walk in step with the great order that governs all. It is as though the soul learns to breathe with creation itself, finding its place within the vast symphony of existence. The indolent who sleep past these hours often feel at war with the day, always behind, always rushed, always anxious. But the disciplined who rise early enter the stream of order, finding that time stretches, that labor flows, that opportunities unfold. For the dawn was never meant to be squandered, but embraced as the first gift of the day. And in this discipline lies wisdom. For wisdom is not merely the possession of knowledge, nor the recitation of proverbs, but the right ordering of one's life. Knowledge without discipline collapses, discipline without wisdom becomes rigid. But together they form the bedrock of maturity. The one who rises early trains the mind to focus, the body to obey, the will to persevere. He learns, too, to listen in stillness, for the dawn does not shout but whispers. Wisdom comes in whispers, not in noise. It comes when the soul is quiet enough to hear what is always present, but rarely attended to. The disciplined morning makes a space for such hearing, and in that hearing comes guidance, and in that guidance, life is shaped. Destinies are written in choices repeated until they become character. No single act of discipline makes a destiny, but 1,000 small acts, repeated at dawn, engrave themselves upon the soul. One does not notice the slow growth of the tree, but one day its branches spread wide, its shade shelters many, and its fruit nourishes generations. So it is with discipline. The student who studies at dawn grows into the teacher who guides with authority. The laborer who trains at dawn grows into the master who builds with skill. The seeker who prays at dawn grows into the sage who counsels with wisdom. Destiny is not an accident but an accumulation, and discipline is the hand that lays brick upon brick until a temple rises, where once there was only soil. Those who despise small beginnings despise their own future, but those who honor them prepare themselves for greatness. Discipline at dawn also guards against the tyranny of chaos. Life is full of demands, distractions, urgencies that arrive uninvited. The one who begins without discipline is like a city without walls, open to every invader, vulnerable to every whim. But the one who has risen early, who has already given the first fruits of his time to order and intention, is fortified. He enters the day as a soldier armored, not as a wanderer unarmed. He does not merely react to life, he directs it. He chooses rather than drifts. and such direction accumulates power. For though each day seems small, a life of such days becomes mighty, unshaken by the winds of chance. The disciplined at dawn are not enslaved by the clock, they command it, for they have already claimed its most precious portion. This discipline demands sacrifice, yet its rewards far outweigh its cost. The cost is sleep surrendered, comfort forsaken, ease denied. But what is sleep compared to clarity? What is comfort compared to courage? What is ease compared to destiny? The sacrifice is small in light of the harvest it yields. For the dawn repays in abundance peace of mind, steadiness of spirit, strength of will, wisdom of heart. And those who rise early often find, too, that they have been given hours others never knew existed, time stretched as though eternity itself smiled upon them. They achieve more, see more, know more, because they have entered a secret chamber while others still dream. And though their labor may seem hidden, its fruit will one day be revealed, for no seed sown in discipline remains barren. Wisdom is often thought to come late in life, after years of trial. But the truth is that wisdom begins in small disciplines practiced faithfully. The old man who counsels the young with insight did not receive such wisdom in a single flash. He built it over decades, rising, listening, learning, obeying. The mother who guides her children with gentle strength did not invent such wisdom in a moment of crisis. She forged it in years of early rising, of patient toil, of disciplined love. Wisdom is never sudden, it is cultivated. And the discipline of dawn is one of its richest soils. For in those hours, the heart is humble, the mind uncluttered, the spirit teachable. And where humility, clarity, and teachability meet, wisdom is sure to grow. The discipline of dawn also protects the soul from the folly of wasted time. Much of life is squandered not in great sins, but in small neglects, in hours frittered away in idleness, in energy drained by distractions. The one who disciplines the dawn disciplines time itself, transforming it from an enemy into a servant. He does not wander into the day but strides with intention, already ahead, already centered. And this mastery over time spills into all things. Work is done more efficiently, relationships are tended with more attention, and rest, when it comes, is sweeter. To squander the dawn is to surrender one's freedom. To discipline the dawn is to claim it. And in claiming it, one finds that the hours of life, once fleeting, become rich, full, enduring. Finally, destiny is not only shaped by what one does but by who one becomes. Discipline at dawn does not only accomplish tasks, it transforms the soul. It molds one into a person of steadiness, resilience, integrity. It teaches patience, endurance, humility. It trains one to live not by whims but by principles, not by ease but by truth. And such a soul, forged in discipline, becomes not only wise for itself but a beacon for others. Others look and wonder at the strength, the clarity, the wisdom. And though they may not see the hidden mornings, they taste the fruit. And the world is changed, not by loud declarations or sudden revolutions, but by quiet souls who, day after day, rose before the dawn and laid their lives upon the altar of discipline. Between shadows and sunrise lies a hidden covenant, where the ordinary is remade into the eternal. The hours before dawn are draped in mystery, for they belong neither wholly to night nor fully to day. They are the meeting place of endings and beginnings, of silence and awakening, of longing and fulfillment. Shadows stretch long and deep in that time, whispering of fears and regrets, of unspoken burdens that cling to the soul. Yet just beyond those shadows, a promise glimmers, a fragile light that pierces the dark and proclaims that night has no final claim. In that interval, in that threshold between what was and what shall be, a covenant is renewed, the covenant that nothing ordinary is wasted, that every breath may be sanctified, that life itself, however frail, may be lifted into eternity. It is in those hours that one feels most deeply the weight of one's own humanity. The night reminds us of our smallness, of our mortality, of the shadows within as well as without. And yet the first hint of dawn reminds us that we are more than dust, that we are called to more than weariness and failure. Between shadows and sunrise, the heart stands at a crossroad. One may yield to despair, sinking deeper into the darkness, or one may lift the eyes and behold the faint line of light upon the horizon. That choice, repeated morning after morning, becomes the essence of faith itself, the act of believing in light even when surrounded by night. And so the covenant is renewed, not in grand ceremonies, not in public proclamations, but in the quiet turning of the heart toward the coming dawn. There is a sacred dignity to the shadows themselves. Too often we despise them, eager only for the sun, yet the shadows are teachers. They remind us that life is not constant brightness, that wisdom is not learned only in joy, that growth does not come only in ease. The shadows stretch across the floor of the soul, and in their shapes we learn humility. We remember our limits, our wounds, our need. Without the shadows, light would be taken for granted, and the covenant of dawn would lose its meaning. It is precisely because the night is long that the sunrise is precious. And so one must not rush too quickly past the shadows, but linger long enough to learn their lessons, to allow their sobering truths to deepen the heart. For when the light comes, and it always comes, it falls not upon shallow soil but upon ground prepared by shadow. And yet, the sunrise is inevitable. No night has ever held back the sun, no darkness has ever triumphed forever. That is the covenant written into creation itself. A covenant renewed each morning whether men notice it or not. To rise before dawn is to become a witness to this eternal promise, to stand in the very moment when the world turns from dark to light. In that turning, the ordinary day, filled with its tasks, its meals, its conversations, its struggles, suddenly carries a different weight. For if the sun can rise after the longest night, then so too can hope rise after despair, forgiveness after failure, joy after sorrow. The ordinary becomes infused with eternal significance, and every action, however small, carries the fragrance of the sunrise. Washing the dishes, writing the letter, speaking the word of kindness. All these are transfigured by the covenant of dawn, for they participate in the pattern of darkness overcome by light. Between shadows and sunrise, time itself feels altered. Minutes stretch, and silence thickens, as though eternity leans close. One feels that the unseen world is nearer, that veils are thinner, that what is eternal touches what is temporal. And in that nearness, the soul senses its true home. The noise of the day often blinds us to eternity, chaining us to tasks and worries and fleeting pleasures. But in those early hours, eternity whispers. It whispers that life is more than survival, more than ambition, more than the scramble for security. It whispers that every choice, every word, every moment is charged with significance beyond what the eye can see. And the one who listens, truly listens, begins to live differently. He walks into the day with reverence, with patience, with an awareness that nothing is trivial. Even shadows are holy when viewed in the light of sunrise. The covenant between shadows and sunrise is not one-sided, it calls for response. The sun will rise regardless of whether one greets it, but to greet it is to enter into its promise, to allow its renewal to remake the heart. One may sleep through the dawn, indifferent to its wonder, and wake only when the noise of day demands attention. But the one who wakes earlier, who sits in the hush of shadows and waits for light, participates in the covenant, letting the eternal seep into the ordinary. This participation does not remove all troubles, nor does it grant a life without suffering. But it bestows resilience, a quiet strength, a steady hope. Such a person is not easily shaken, for they have stood between shadows and sunrise, and they have seen with their own eyes that light is stronger than darkness. The transformation of the ordinary into the eternal is most evident in memory. Think of the mornings when you rose early, when you watched the first rays break the horizon. You do not recall them merely as hours of time, they remain lodged in memory as moments of grace. A conversation at dawn, a prayer whispered in the half-light, a page of a book read while others slept. These become milestones, far more vivid than countless hours of daylight. Why? Because they were touched by eternity, by the covenant of shadows giving way to sunrise. They remind us that life's value is not measured by the grandeur of events, but by the depth of presence, the willingness to attend to what is before us with reverence. and once the ordinary has been so transfigured, it can never again be despised. The covenant is also communal, though often unseen. Countless souls across the world rise in those hours, some in monasteries, some in fields, some in cities, and though they may never meet, they share in the same rhythm, the same covenant. Their prayers, their labor, their waiting form an invisible fellowship, a community not bound by walls or names but by time itself. The shadows cover them all, the sunrise greets them all, and in that shared turning, humanity is bound together in a way seldom acknowledged. The covenant of dawn is not merely personal but universal, a reminder that the story of light overcoming darkness is larger than any individual, that it encompasses nations, generations, all creation. To rise in those hours is to stand with countless others, known and unknown, in silent agreement with the eternal rhythm. Yet, it is also profoundly personal. Each sunrise is unique, each set of shadows casts its own shape. The burdens you bring to the dawn are not the burdens of another, and the light that meets your face is meant for you. The covenant is universal, yes, but it is also intimate, as though the whole of creation conspired to bring this dawn to your window, this light to your eyes, this promise to your heart. The ordinary coffee brewed in the kitchen, the sound of a bird beginning its song, the faint warmth of light through glass. All these become sacraments, ordinary things infused with eternal meaning. To ignore them is to miss the covenant. To attend to them is to receive a treasure that cannot be taken away. Between shadows and sunrise, the heart learns patience. The waiting itself becomes holy, for the dawn never rushes. One cannot command the sun to rise, cannot hasten its light, cannot bend its timing to one's will. All one can do is wait, watch, trust. And in that waiting, pride is humbled. Control is relinquished. Dependence is acknowledged. Patience is not passivity, but a form of strength, the strength to remain steady until the light comes. And such patience, learned in the covenant of dawn, seeps into all of life. One becomes patient with others, patient with trials, patient with oneself. For one has learned that light will come in its time, and that no shadow lasts forever. In the end, though dawn is inevitable, the covenant is not about inevitability but about recognition. Shadows will always yield to sunrise, but will you see it? Will you greet it? Will you let it remake the way you live the rest of the day? For that is the heart of the covenant. The ordinary, when received with open eyes and willing heart, is remade into the eternal. A morning becomes more than a morning, a shadow more than a shadow, a ray of light more than a ray of light. And when one has learned this at dawn, one begins to see it everywhere, in laughter, in tears, in work, in rest. The covenant of dawn teaches that eternity is never far, that it waits just beneath the surface, ready to shine forth, if only we are awake enough to see